I am New York.
Yes, I'm New York.
I am New York.
Yo soy Nueva York.
Sono New York.
Je suis New York.
We are New York.
Welcome to DiverseCITY, where we explore New York's eclectic enclaves, one neighborhood at a time. I'm Zyphus Lebrun. This month, we're here in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. The neighborhood became known as New York City's unofficial Little Poland after World War II, when the wave of immigration that began in the 1880s continued. Now, the community that was once lauded for its small-town feel is quickly changing. Greenpoint is no longer Williamsburg's sleepy next-door neighbor to the north. The area is becoming hip, so hip that Gwyneth Paltrow had a photo shoot in a local grocery store for a Harper's Bazaar magazine cover. The shift is in part being driven by a residential rezoning policy from 2005 that's already transformed Williamsburg's waterfront and is about to bring high-rises and mega projects to an area that was once lined with factories. On this episode, Zone Defense, a grassroots organization, wants to protect local jobs as the city projects a new tech future for the neighborhood. Going Green, the effort to create more green space in the community near the site of one of the largest environmental disasters in the country's history. And from cookie cutter to classic, sweet treats at a sweet price at a popular neighborhood cafe. Those stories and more coming up as we explore Greenpoint, Brooklyn. A city plan to rezone the area has labor advocates concerned about the impact on local industrial workers. We get the details from Tina Beth Pina.
Greenpoint may be known as a trendy neighborhood, but just a long block from the bars and cafes of Manhattan Avenue is a vast industrial business zone, or IBZ. The area between McGinnis Boulevard and Newtown Creek is the third largest of 21 IBZs around the city.
It doesn't kind of get the play that Wall Street or hospitality do because of the economic impact, right? You know, Wall Street, that's big money. It's a lot of money in the city's coffers, and this is less so. We can't have the city without it.
Leah Archibald is the executive director of a local group called Evergreen. It advocates on behalf of industrial businesses in North Brooklyn. She's at odds with the Department of City Planning's effort to rezone the area. DCP wants to limit uses like hotels and concert venues and create more office space.
They are agnostic about the kind of job growth they want to see. So because you can cram more people in offices, their analysis encourages much more high-density office growth. But they just kind of don't care what kind of jobs they are, whereas we care a lot that they be manufacturing and industrial jobs.
Evergreen surveys have found that the industrial sector hires nearly half of its employees from local zip codes. The city's data says that the largest employers in the IBZ are wholesale trade at 23%. Construction at 19%, and manufacturing at 16%.
We've got a really interesting mix of like the historical legacy, traditional manufacturing firms, but also these really cool, creative entrepreneurs.
One of these entrepreneurs is Michael Peterson, who runs All Sorts Inc., a custom fabrication shop that specializes in set making for photo shoots.
I mean, as far as the sets go, yeah, that's sort of the niche mainly, and then we service a lot for art galleries or artists, whether it's actual artwork or pedestals and displays or walls, getting into film and video stuff in the city for sound stages and stuff like that would be sort of the bulk of our work, I guess, yeah.
All Sorts typifies the shift in the neighborhood's identity from being home to traditional heavy manufacturers to a haven for lighter artisanal industry. This comes as developers and planners are sizing up the area to be a new tech and office hub.
There's a lot of hope in the real estate industry overall. That, you know, Brooklyn, particularly North Brooklyn, is going to be, you know, this new haven of tech job growth, and it's going to be like, you know, Silicon Alley Junior or whatever.
Archibald is not buying it. She fears that turning the area into such a hub will cause many locals to lose their jobs.
The more density for office uses that is allowed and encouraged will actually drive up the price of the underlying real estate, and that will dislodge many of our manufacturers, many of which are renters and can't afford to purchase their own property.
I think a lot of real estate people come around and try to get owners to jack the rents way up, and it's unreasonable. It's not like retail or, you know, Williamsburg.
The Department of City Planning is working to complete the new zoning proposal within the upcoming months. The local council members are opposed to the plan in its current form. The City Planning Department has not responded to requests for comment. This is Tina Beth Pina for DiverseCITY.
Newtown Creek was once one of the major industrial waterways in the country. However, it's earned the dubious distinction of being the location for the second largest oil spill in U.S. history. Crystal Lowe reports on the continued effort to clean up the creek and create more green space nearby.
The Newtown Creek Nature Walk is one of the few public access points along the waterway. To us, that's a really big issue. There's 11 miles of shoreline on the creek, and there's very, very few places where people can even see it or get to it or interact with it. And that has, we believe, helped perpetuate a state of pollution and dumping because it's basically a fenced-off waterway that no one has a lot of personal connection with.
Willis Elkins moved to Greenpoint in 2007. He got involved with a community-based environmental protection organization, Newtown Creek Alliance, in 2013. He says that it's really important to reconnect the community with the waterway that's in their backyard.
I got really interested in the water, and so I started going out on the water, got a small boat to paddle around and stuff like that, and then met a lot of the people that were involved in Newtown Creek Alliance and other community residents who had been fighting for many years to see this place cleaned up.
A cleanup of approximately 17 to 30 million gallons of raw oil mixed with water underground that was discovered in 1978. That makes it the site of one of the largest oil spills in U.S. history.
I think the impacts of the pollution on the community are frankly hard to quantify, but they're numerous. So you have issues where the waterway has been poisoned. It's become too dangerous to fish in, too dangerous to swim or have primary contact with. And then it's also had untold and unquantified numerous effects on people's health that have lived and worked here.
The Newtown Creek Alliance has teamed up with the nonprofit environmental organization Riverkeeper to identify and eliminate pollution sources in the area. The Alliance has also partnered with schools such as LaGuardia Community College to develop projects focused on bringing back the creek's lost habitat.
We've developed a Newtown Creek-based curriculum that we rolled out in 4 schools in Greenpoint, and now we're in 2 schools in Long Island City. And so that the kids, when they're learning about natural sciences and ecology, they're using Newtown Creek as a local example to understand these concepts. And so it's been really good to involve, you know, the next generation and help develop greater stewardship of our local environment.
In 2010, Newtown Creek was named a Superfund site by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. The Superfund program is designed to investigate and clean up sites contaminated with hazardous substances.
So there was a number of lawsuits from groups like Riverkeeper, residents of the neighborhood, and then eventually the State Attorney General's office to hold ExxonMobil, who was the primary responsible party for the Greenpoint oil spill, accountable to do a better job cleaning it up and to also give back to the community.
Katie Horowitz is the executive director of the North Brooklyn Parks Alliance. The organization was formed in 2003 to raise private funds to expand and improve open space in North Brooklyn. They have also joined the Newtown Creek Alliance in advocating for cleaning up the waterway and creating public access to the creek.
My organization was founded by the same group of people who were fighting some of those environmental fights historically, as a way to sort of hold the city accountable for some of the open space promises that they made, and then also to think about, how you handle parks and open spaces in a district-wide capacity.
Horowitz and the North Brooklyn Parks Alliance have been working closely with the state to complete a transformative project they call Under the K, referring to the land beneath the Kosciuszko Bridge.
The idea was creating a new open space in Greenpoint. Like many neighborhoods across the city, Greenpoint is very dense. There aren't too many spaces that can be, turned into parkland, turned into open space. So working with New York State to transform a sort of unlikely 7 acres underneath a bridge on the banks of the Newtown Creek was an extraordinary opportunity. And it takes the persistence of community activism to ensure that the community has the access to parks and open spaces that they need to. And again, it's like, the city is very, very dense, and the parks are, a resident's backyard. Since most of us don't have backyards, it's where we play, it's where we read, it's where we sleep, it's where we, recreate. And so it's essential to have these spaces that unfortunately a lot of people think are just a luxury, when in fact it's essential benefit to the health and well-being and quality of life of New Yorkers.
Crystal Lowe for DiverseCITY.
For almost 10 years, Radio Ropa has focused on Polish-speaking immigrants in Greenpoint. Now, as the number of Polish-born residents in the neighborhood is shrinking, the station is making a play for the attention of second-generation Poles who don't speak their ancestral tongue. Gary Pierre has more.
Wiadomości dnia w Radio Rampa.
Monika Adamski, Radio Rampa. Dzień dobry, witam Państwa i zapraszam na kolejny program, w którym most important matters pertaining to the Polish-American community on the East Coast of the United States.
That's Monika Adamski, editor-in-chief of Radio Rampa, a storefront studio in Greenpoint. Every day, she hosts a news show in Polish and English that reaches up to 500,000 viewers and listeners along the East Coast.
It was very exciting for us to be able to reach people, of course, physically with the fact that we're in Greenpoint, in the Polish community. That was very important. But then also through internet, we could reach people outside of our neighborhood or circle, and we loved how people responded, because now we have feedback from New York City primarily, but also New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, so we can really reach Polish population where they are. And that's why we know that we reach people on the whole East Coast.
Monika and her husband, Arthur, started the station 8 years ago. That was after Polski Radio, the last Polish language station in the community, went off the air. It showed them how to rethink their approach to community coverage and manage the books.
So we started with podcasts, then we started video coverage, and this has never been done. So the Polish community is very active. There's a lot of going on, a lot of events. Guests are coming from Poland, and the community is very well organized. And there is a need to spread the word about this, and people want to know more about what's going on.
In the last few years, the Adamskis have broadened beyond radio. They also run a television station. The broadcasts include more English language content. It's a way to attract a younger generation of Poles who don't speak their parents' tongue, but are well steeped into the culture and want to learn more.
And we also feel it's very important for the Polish-American voice to be heard among politicians in New York. We invite many politicians to come here. We interview them in English, and then these interviews are picked up also by American outlets. So this is very important. We ask them about Polish issues, Polish-American matters, about our community here.
Like most local media outlets, Radio Rampa faces revenue challenges. Ad dollars are gobbled up by internet giants like Google and Facebook. With a staff of primarily 2 people, multitasking is the only option. They need to be creative to generate revenue.
We try to do the best that we can with what we have. We have to do more than one person does. If I do the technical, I do the business. Monica does the editing. Monica does the show. She is the face on camera. I make sure everything works, but she still has to know how to edit and then get the things going the way she wants to.
In a twist of fate, Radio Ropa is growing while the Polish community in Greenpoint is shrinking.
I just think that the neighborhood is changing very quickly in the way it's getting modernized. We see a lot of new businesses, not Polish businesses anymore. And it's changed the way I see it is that in the past more people used to live here, and I mean Polish people. And to now it's more kind of like Polish institutions move here.
That's made the area more of a magnet for Polish visitors looking for a slice of their homeland in America.
They love to come here, they come for shopping, and they leave. It's still a very attractive place for Polish people to come to America or, try to make it here. But still we see it's more now of like relaxed visits, and the perception of New York also changed.
For DiverseCITY, I'm Gary Pierre.
Greenpoint's got a rich history of industry, from being the first place in the US where an eraser was put on a pencil, to being the birthplace of porcelain production in the country. I met up with a local historian outside St. John's Lutheran Church. He took us on a walk through time.
Greenpoint was one of the first places in America to industrialize, and because it industrialized and had factory jobs, different waves of immigrants came through this neighborhood. And one of the first waves of immigrants that came through were Germans. And I think if you look up, you can see written in old German script that this is St. John's Evangelical Church.
Jeffrey Cobb has an affinity for his adopted home of Greenpoint. An Irish immigrant, Cobb has been living in the area for over 25 years. He gives historical walking tours of the neighborhood and has authored 2 books on its rich history.
So Greenpoint was the capital of the porcelain industry in the United States.
Remnants of that history are still prominent on buildings like this one along Manhattan Avenue. Thomas Smith built Karamos as a public meeting space and to exhibit his work. Smith pioneered porcelain making in the country and made millions when he used the material to insulate electrical wires.
A lot of people have lived in Greenpoint for years and they don't realize the history of this building, but we have a few clues here which show us that it was originally a building made to showcase these beautiful pieces of porcelain. If you look down here, these are original Thomas Smith porcelain tiles.
Those are beautiful.
Right, and they would date from the 1870s. Up here you have Karamos, again, which relates to the poem by William Wordsworth, which is about a potter, about the act of creating pottery. And then here, written in Greek, it says, I believe my translation is correct, I give birth. All right.
While Karamos speaks to the area's history of industry, churches like St. Anthony of Padua highlight immigrants' influence on the neighborhood. That includes Irish and later on Hispanic.
By the 1920s, we start to have the first Puerto Ricans. And by the 1970s, at least half of this neighborhood is Hispanic. Greenpoint Avenue becomes a dividing line, and north of Greenpoint Avenue, it's heavily Puerto Rican and Hispanic.
We sat down at Kerchma, a popular pub that recreates the look of a 19th century Polish country tavern. A proud reminder of the area's deep history that earned it the moniker Little Poland. Cobb says that first wave of immigrants dates back to the neighborhood's days of being a hub for sugar and oil refining.
Polish immigrants flocked here because there were jobs in these refineries. The jobs didn't require English. And already by the eve of the First World War, the largest ethnic group in Greenpoint is already Polish.
It wasn't only men working at the refineries at the turn of the 20th century. Women also worked in pencil and rope factories.
There's a story that I love. In 1910, the workers of this factory struck, and the police were just informed that it was a strike, and they went in with their clubs expecting to beat male heads, as they did. what they were confronted was by hundreds of angry, mostly Polish females with bricks and rocks and bottles. And there was this very, very violent strike, and the police didn't know how to respond because these were females and they hadn't expected that.
Way before the waves of Polish immigration, Greenpoint was mainly farmland that was transformed by one man.
A man called Nasiah Bliss realized that shipbuilding was going to get pushed out of Manhattan and shipbuilding needed a new home. He looked over across the East River, saw that this was farmland, and realized it would be a perfect community, right, to set up shipbuilding. So he bought the land, had it surveyed into streets and lots, and then by the 1850s, this is a shipbuilding community.
Though its shipbuilding days are long gone, the neighborhood's waterfront is still prime real estate and, once again, being eyed to be the epicenter of industry in the community. But, unlike before, the new jobs aren't as welcoming to unskilled laborers. Cobb says the consequent changes are leaving one particular group very vulnerable.
I think that especially senior citizens are really scared by this process. A lot of them are on fixed incomes, and they're worried that somebody's going to buy their building and force them out. There have been a lot of horror stories of new landlords who've come in and have tried really intimidating tactics to force these long-term tenants out. So I'd say that there's really an element of fear.
Finally, from cookie cutter to community icon, this cafe and patisserie that we're about to profile has made a name for itself the old-fashioned way. Abby Ishola has the story.
Peter Pan Donut and Pastry Shop, with its retro decor and old-school menu, isn't trying to play off the wave of nostalgia that's currently cool. It's actually been around since the 70s.
This was really a cookie-cutter donut shop. All the donut shops look the same. The way the counters are shaped, the signs, because these are original signs with the writing, So all the donut shops were the same. But unfortunately, a lot of them went out of business and the places disappeared. But this was always a staple in the community, and we were lucky enough to keep it that way.
Donna Siafakis and her husband took the store over in 1993. A friendly landlord has helped them weather the rash of rent hikes that have pushed others out. Though something else has kept the business competitive.
There's places that have opened up with, very good donuts, I will admit. But you're talking $3.50, $4 a donut, which not everyone could afford to, the working person, spend that kind of money every day. So we have the traditional old-fashioned donut from the 70s and quality ingredients, and we try to keep the price low so we get the working person.
Those working people often pack the store and even form lines outside as they await favorites, like the honey dip and sour cream donuts. It's not only the sweet prices that have helped Peter Pan become a neighborhood standout. They've branded themselves with a unique retro uniform.
They're made special order because they discontinued the color. So in order to keep them, I had to order 144 of them, which my husband didn't know, but now he'll know. But I wouldn't have changed the color. I love it.
I feel like when I don't wear uniform, customers outside, they don't recognize me. That's how very unique is that.
Anna has worn the uniform for 15 years. The Polish immigrant says the staff is like family.
I am very attached to this place. It's like my second home. And Dana, the boss, is like my friend, my second mother, my American mother, I call her.
She was also inspired to take on a major challenge while working at the store.
When I was start working here, I was watching New York City marathons, always passing by. So one time I decided to run it myself, and I ran it 4 times New York City marathon. And always girls came up with Dana, and they cheered me up and gave me everything what I needed. And I met a lot of runners that come here, and I run with them. So yeah, it's amazing. amazing place.
A place that Siafaki's hopes will continue after she retires. Till then, she'll continue cruising through the aisles and taking the occasional order at the store that seems suspended in time. Abby Ashola for DiverseCITY.
That's our look at Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Join us next month for our city transportation special. Till then, step outside and enjoy our diverse city.